Good morning, everyone. We're going to just wait about a minute to make sure people have time to join us, and then we'll get started. Okay, we have a full program for y'all today, so I'm going to get started, and then if we have some people joining us, that's wonderful. I just want to welcome you all to the San Diego Hunger Coalition's first Hunger Free Insider Briefing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Georgia O'Farrell. I have recently joined the team as Development Director. My email is here. I'm sure you received emails and invites from me as well, so I would love to be able to connect with you individually, answer any questions, or share any comments that you have after this presentation. Here is our agenda for the morning. Again, welcome. We're super excited to have you meet some of our team and hear about the work that we've been doing, especially in these times. Soon you will be hearing about food insecurity during COVID, what the Hunger Coalition has been working on, our successes, and what's coming up in the future. And then an initiative we're working on creating a hunger-free San Diego. After our presentation, we will have a Q&A session for those who are able to stick around. We definitely encourage you to make comments and post questions in our chat throughout the presentation. We have a staff member who is monitoring that, and we will definitely get to that at the end of the presentation. And just some housekeeping. I know we're all very familiar with Zoom at this point, but just want to show where the chat icon is located with the red arrow, as well as an option to make a comment to either all of our panelists and attendees or all of our panelists. So here I want to share some of our wonderful speakers today. We have Anahid Braki, our president and CEO, Amanda Schultz-Brochu, our vice president of programs, Jake Hess, our CalFresh program manager, and Amanda Mesha, our Hunger Free Kids manager. I first want to it's my pleasure to introduce Anahid Braki, our president and CEO, who's going to share with us first.
Good morning, everyone. We are delighted to have you join us for our first Hunger Free Insider Briefing. We decided to start holding these quarterly webinars so that we could update our closest partners and supporters, you all who are on the call. Thank you so much for supporting us or working closely with us. And I'm going to start us off today just with a little bit of information about the San Diego Hunger Coalition. Next slide. San Diego Hunger Coalition was created in 1974 by a group of volunteers around Thanksgiving time. They came together to organize regional food drives. In 1975, the organization or the group started to work on advocacy and actually worked on the first Good Samaritan food donation bill that became law in the nation, which was pretty a great first start. So in 1977, we were a key player in starting the San Diego Food Bank, and one of our members is on the original documents of the food bank. And then in the 1980s, we started to look at some tools for hunger relief that were really direly underutilized in San Diego County. And then around 2005, we created the CalFresh Task Force. So as our supporters, you probably know that CalFresh is the same thing as SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. That's the program that's formerly known as food stamps. So the new improved version is called SNAP, and we call it CalFresh here in San Diego. So in 2005, San Diego County's CalFresh participation rate was 26%, which means that about 1 in 4 eligible people were enrolled. So that's when we started our even more formalized collaborative approach, bringing people together, bringing the county together, bringing cross-sector partners together to work on that issue. And then a year later, we had our first paid employee. So this organization was grassroots, volunteer run for most of its existence. And then today we have about 11 staff, 200 plus partners. Next slide. Our mission today remains true to our founding purpose 45 years ago, which is that we lead coordinated action to end hunger in San Diego County. And now we do this supporting it with research, education and training, and advocacy. Next slide. Our purpose, and I think we've gotten really clear about this over the last several years, and this is a big, with Hunger Free San Diego, we've really honed in and understood that the highest and best use of our time and resources is to make sure that anybody experiencing hunger or facing food insecurity can get the assistance that they need to see them through their time of need. Next slide. So the way that we create systemic change, as those of you who have known us for a long time know, we don't provide direct service. We operate a little bit like a business to business in some ways, or a backbone organization, if you've heard that term. So we provide research and leadership to build a more effective and interconnected system of food assistance. We provide training and technical assistance to our partner organizations across multiple sectors. We provide education and training and issue briefs for our partners and funders and policymakers and the public to better understand to better understand hunger and the most promising solutions that are happening across the nation or right here in our county. And then we advocate for those kinds of changes that need to be in black and white, and they need to be made into law. So we're advocating at the local, state, and federal level. And then we're also changing processes at the county and other types of systems that don't require a legislative change. Next slide. We have 4 primary focus areas. So we work very hard to make CalFresh easier for people to access. And in that area, we facilitate the CalFresh Task Force, which meets in 4 different regions every month. We have our Hunger Free Kids program, which expands school meals and other child nutrition programs. And in that area, we have our Hunger Free Kids Task Force. In our policy and advocacy arm, which actually extends into each of our program areas, but then we also have our Hunger Advocacy Network, where we often advocate for bills that are important to our partners, as well as us, that might not be in school meals or CalFresh arena, such as expanding, increasing Social Security or supplemental Social Security income was something that we advocated for years, advocating for SSI individuals to be able to receive CalFresh. These are types of things that we get together with the other 20 organizations who are in the Hunger Advocacy Network with us, and we submit letters together and identify priorities together. And then finally, with Hunger Free San Diego, we have created an advisory board of leaders representing different tables and different programs across the entire food assistance network. So we have 200 local partners that participate in 1 or more of our task forces. And then we have a broad info sharing network of more than 400 different agencies and collaboratives. Next slide. So with that intro, it's now my pleasure to introduce our Vice President of Programs and Chief Program Officer, Amanda Schultz-Brochu.
Thank you so much, Anahid, and thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm excited to share about and provide a bit of a landscape on food insecurity to ground us this morning. Next slide. So many of you are likely familiar with these statistics. Prior to COVID, the Hunger Coalition led a collaborative landscape assessment with the Hunger Free San Diego Advisory Board, which resulted in the estimate that roughly 1 in 7, or 443,000 San Diegans, reported food insecurity in 2017. This analysis, conducted in conjunction with UCLA, found that the majority of adults experiencing food insecurity were actually employed, with 43% working full-time. So while 14% of San Diegans self-reported food insecurity, 1/3 or 33% of San Diegans were actually earning less than $14.35 an hour, many in industries that were hardest hit by COVID. Next slide. When we dove deeper into data, prior to COVID, 1 in 5 children were in households that were reporting food insecurity. This data is further supported by the fact that 50% of students in public schools across San Diego County are enrolled in the free and reduced price meal program, and 40% of CalFresh recipients are currently aged 0 to 18. Next slide. When we take a look more closely at senior food insecurity, 1 in 10 seniors are reporting food insecurity. However, we estimated that this was actually an underestimate, knowing that 25% of seniors across San Diego County, or roughly 108,000 seniors, have income that's below 200% of the federal poverty level, putting them at risk of food insecurity. Next slide. So as we attempt to estimate food insecurity for our region during this time, the Hunger Coalition is reviewing national, state, and local indicators to paint a more comprehensive picture. Taking a look at the national level, currently 1 in 5 households, or 22% of households across the nation, are reporting food insecurity, and 2 in 5 households with children aged 0 to 12 are reporting food insecurity. Perhaps most concerning is that 17% of moms with children aged 0 to 12 are reporting that their kids are not getting enough to eat, and this is up significantly from only 3% in 2018. When we take a closer look at data at the state level here in California, 25% of Californians are food insecure, which is tracking closely with our national estimate, somewhere between 22 and 25%. Next slide. So another area that we've been looking very closely at the Northwestern University in Illinois, is utilizing the Census Household Pulse data to track food insecurity over time. And the graph on your left is weekly food insecurity that's being reported by households, broken down by racial and ethnic categories. When we take a closer look, we do see that food insecurity is disproportionately impacting communities of color, particularly Black households, where that make up only 6% of California's population, but account for 30% of food insecurity in our state. Next slide, please. When we're looking at food insecurity here in San Diego County, we're taking a closer look at economic indicators, including unemployment rates and unemployment claims. So we see that over the course of the pandemic, 33% of San Diego County labor force has filed unemployment claims during the pandemic. These unemployment claims data highlights that workers with lower education levels have been disproportionately impacted, with roughly 70% of individuals filing claims reporting a high school degree or less. Next slide, please. Similarly, we can see that communities of color here in San Diego County are disproportionately impacted by unemployment during the pandemic. And if we think back to the data at the state level, these statistics are mirroring state data. One thing I did want to point out in both state and local data is that while the food insecurity that's being reported by Hispanic or Latino households is tracking as slightly lower. And similarly for unemployment claims, there's been significant conversations around the likelihood that Hispanic or Latino households are less likely to report challenges and significantly less likely to access resources due to the political climate. So while the data is not necessarily reflecting as high of a need, we do know that there is a significant need in our Latino and Hispanic households across the region. Next slide, please. So what does this mean for San Diego County? Taking lessons from the most recent economic downturn, we know that economic recovery will not reach low-income households for another 5+ years. While we began to see unemployment rates improve in 2012, CalFresh enrollment did not peak until 2015. And our food insecurity rates didn't start to drop until 2016. As a result, we anticipate continuing to see crisis levels of food insecurity through 2021. Next slide, please. Okay, so while we project that food insecurity rates will remain high, we also know that San Diego County has a robust network of food security and food assistance resources. In 2018, the San Diego Hunger Coalition with the Hunger Free San Diego Advisory Board mapped the food assistance landscape. And in front of you, you have a pie chart of that food resource landscape. So this pie chart really, we see it as highlighting the critical role that federal nutrition assistance programs play in our region. As you can see, CalFresh and Child and Youth Meals, WIC, all play significant parts in ensuring that we're able to get food assistance resources to the people who need it. Our program leads will be talking more about these program areas and sharing the work that we're doing. But before we do that, I'm going to turn it back over to Georgia.
Thank you, Amanda. So as Amanda said, you'll be able to hear from our program managers of our Hunger Free Kids program and CalFresh. They'll be sharing pivotal successes and what's coming up next. Before we get into that, I just want to take a moment to thank you, our donors and supporters. Just from what Anahid and Amanda shared, I'm sure you can see that there's a huge need for the work that we're doing in our community, and it could not be possible without you. Every donation counts and makes a huge impact. So thank you, and thanks for being here. We hope that you gained something new today and hear the impact that you've made. So now I'd like to introduce Jake Hess, our program manager of CalFresh.
Great, thank you, Georgia. Good morning, and thank you for joining us here today. My name is Jake Hess, and I'm the CalFresh program manager. So I'll be sharing today updates on our hunger-free work with CalFresh, how things have changed due to COVID, some recent successes, and where we're headed next. So we focus heavily on increasing access to CalFresh because, as you can see, CalFresh provides the majority of meals to hungry San Diegans when looking at where food assistance is coming from, at about 57%. CalFresh has proven to be one of the strongest hunger relief tools while also benefiting the economy by bringing federal dollars into our local community. It also relieves the demand on food pantries and distributions, which are seeing a record high need. So next, I'll share our Hunger Free with CalFresh role and approach with our goal of increasing CalFresh access for individuals and families, especially the most vulnerable, so they can add to their food budgets and purchase healthy foods for healthy living. The San Diego Hunger Coalition is the leader of community-based CalFresh application assistance. We provide technical and financial support to community-based organizations to connect individuals and families to CalFresh across the county. San Diego has a historically low utilization rate of about 60%. So we work with nonprofits to focus CalFresh outreach on underserved geographic areas and hard to reach populations to ensure all San Diegans have access to CalFresh. We help build our partners' capacity and their resources. So for example, we administer the largest state CalFresh outreach contract for San Diego County. This includes subcontracting with 11 community-based organizations, shown here, to provide funding for CalFresh outreach. This contract also represents one of the only funding sources for community-based organizations. In the next federal fiscal year, we will pass through more than $325,000 to these 12 organizations for local CalFresh outreach and application assistance. In addition to providing funding, all of our partners go through our CalFresh 101 training, attend our task force meetings, and are in regular communication to troubleshoot barriers, increase access, and improve service delivery. So here we've outlined our approach to Hunger Free with CalFresh. We're providing significant financial and technical support to nonprofits offering CalFresh application assistance. Our CalFresh Task Force, which has been active since 2005, really focuses on increasing access to CalFresh across the county. So we host monthly CalFresh Task Force meetings to facilitate connections among over 30 community-based application assistance organizations. During those meetings, we're providing program updates, and we're also troubleshooting barriers to accessing CalFresh and sharing out best practices. We also develop innovative pilots to deliver CalFresh services to community members, such as our same-day workshops in collaboration with Health and Human Services Agency. Before COVID, we were focusing on connecting older adults to CalFresh and helping them complete their application in a single day. So this included hosting workshops on site where seniors were living, such as senior mobile home parks and senior living facilities. Given social distancing guidelines, we've worked with our partners to transition their service delivery model using virtual methods. One example is a partnership we helped to facilitate between Home Start and PACE, where one-on-one video application assistance appointments were used to help seniors complete their CalFresh application with help from the PACE case managers. We also engage our partners in advocacy opportunities, and we'll be sharing a recent success shortly. And we provide real-time updates on constantly changing local, state, and federal regulations, including from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the California Department of Social Services, and County of San Diego HHSA. The Hunger Coalition immediately saw the need to pivot our efforts to support our nonprofit partners in navigating and maximizing these program changes at both the state and federal level. This information was then shared out to our partners through our task force, social media, and also to the general public. So we provided numerous community presentations, created food assistance resource flyers, and made sure our website was up to date as we learned of new information. So prior to COVID, estimates were that 60% of eligible San Diegans were successfully accessing CalFresh. There are now more than 80,000 additional San Diegans receiving benefits when compared to February 2020. As of mid-March, the Family Resource Centers closed their lobbies and community-based application assistance moved almost entirely online as staff began working from home. There were also several federal program changes that helped to increase access to CalFresh, making it easier for households to apply and complete the application process. So one being monthly emergency allotments. What this did was increase the monthly benefit amount for all CalFresh households based on their household size. So an individual eligible for the minimum amount of $16 is now receiving $194 with these emergency allotments in effect. For a family of 4, they're receiving $680 a month, which is equal to 13 large food boxes. Knowing that emergency allotments are in effect and all families are receiving the maximum benefit amount, we knew that this information has encouraged more individuals and families to apply. Another program change is telephonic signatures. So this allows clients to sign their forms and verbally attest to information over the phone. This program flexibility has significantly increased access by allowing individuals and families to complete information from the safety of their home. Lastly is the waiver of the applicant's required interview, which is what we'll talk about next. So in order to complete the CalFresh application process, applicants are required to complete an interview verifying information, which is usually conducted over the phone. The interview is the largest barrier for clients to complete the application process and the largest administrative burden on HHSA's eligibility staff. This waiver was set to expire on July 31st. Within a 48-hour turnaround, we mobilized our partners to take action, working across a diverse group of advocates, including legal, hunger relief, and county administrative staff, to successfully extend the USDA waiver through August 31st. This included 35 organizations signing on in support, including 11 from San Diego. We continue advocating for program flexibilities to extend through the length of the pandemic through our Hunger Advocacy Network. So next, I'll share our role in reallocating resources and providing capacity support. Due to COVID, one of our subcontractors, HomeStart, had experienced a loss of income. We helped their organization find over $100,000 in funding to be able to replace that lost income and retain one of their full-time CalFresh application assisters. And in April, 211 San Diego saw a record number of calls for CalFresh application assistance. We assessed the landscape and helped to facilitate the development of an MOU between 211 San Diego and HomeStart to establish a CalFresh referral process. HomeStart received referrals from 211 and assisted 260 applicants with their over-the-phone applications in a 2-month period. As a result of this partnership, we are currently assessing opportunities to develop long-term resource allocation plans as well as disaster preparedness plans with 211, so their staff can focus all 211 capacity on disaster response while transferring their CalFresh capacity to community-based organizations to provide that much-needed application assistance. So what's next for Hunger Free with CalFresh? So we will be expanding our CalFresh contract to include 7 new organizations focused on increasing CalFresh access, specifically for underserved geographic areas such as South Bay and underserved populations. As we bring on these new partners, we'll be providing over $900,000 to these 18 nonprofit organizations over the next 3 federal fiscal years. So thanks again for tuning in to learn about CalFresh. And next, I'd like to introduce Amanda Mesha, our Hunger Free Kids Program Manager. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Hi, my name is Amanda Mesha, and I'm the Hunger Free Kids Program Manager, and I'm honored to share our update with you today. So going back to this pie, if you'll please notice school meals, that's 23% of the child and youth meals here in San Diego. So 54 million meals that go out to children. And with COVID and with schools and after school programs closed, that was a significant portion of meals that were at threat of being shut down. So we are really excited to share with you how everybody pivoted and provided opportunity to maintain access to these critical meals. So let's review our Hunger Free Kids goal. Our goal is to ensure that all kids have year-round access to healthy food wherever they live, learn, and play. And this year, wherever they live, learned, and play, especially learned, that changed a lot. And this is our approach: convening, data analysis, real-time updates on changing regulations. In a normal year, some things changed. This year, significant changes. So we track those updates through the USDA, the California Department of Education, the County of San Diego, the San Diego County Office of Education, and more. In addition, we did a lot and continue to do a lot of advocacy at the local, state, and federal level. We'll share some specific examples. And also we help provide financial support for school meals. So we provide connections to grants and also a lot of other resources and information. But probably most importantly, going back to that convening, our first bullet point, we help facilitate connections and shared best practices. So we're really building a thriving community where we can connect and we can share. So Hunger Free Kids during COVID. So schools and after school programming closed. And that was a big transition for everybody, I'm sure, as you've heard all across this nation. Nutrition departments had to transition meal services to meet the immediate needs of a completely new environment and ever-changing regulations. So there were a lot of flexibilities that were granted to change the way meals are served to children, but it was a completely new system. And probably most importantly, families then had to figure out how do they get these new school meals to their children in completely different ways. So before a child would go to school and they get their meals, now parents have to figure out this whole new system and how to get their kids fed. So it was a big challenge. And these are the 4 platforms and hunger-free kids' successes during COVID. So that convening bullet point we talked about earlier. Immediately, Hunger Free Kids started a task force and COVID response meetings. The second pillar, school district grants to provide access to those critical meals in a completely new way. Third pillar, administrative advocacy. And the fourth pillar, we're excited to share, universal free meals and our meals count tool. Next slide, please. And Georgia, you're doing so great with the slides. Thank you so much. So Hunger Free Kids Task Force during COVID, we quickly established as the Hunger Coalition weekly Zoom meetings. So we discuss every week, well now we switched to bi-weekly, but every week, policy, advocacy, resources. We started something new called Share the Chair, where we actually turn over the meeting for 10 or 15 minutes to different experts throughout San Diego to share their experiences. And then we also have really lively, really honest, sometimes really funny and brutal discussions on how to serve school meals and after school meals to children. So these meetings have just been, well, let's hear from Catherine at Borrego Springs Unified, what she has to say. Listening and gleaning from the Monday Zooms has been a lifesaver for me. So we're really honored for that feedback. And look at this list. We couldn't be more honored to have so many partners and thought leaders and school districts and school meal heroes joining our table week after week and sharing their insight, their challenges, their solutions, sometimes their heartache, and sometimes their inspiration. So it's really been a thriving and wonderful group. And we're just so proud to have all these different members come to our meetings every week. It's really been fantastic. Next slide, please. All right, so here we're going to move on to our second pillar, so school district grants and providing resources. We were really fortunate early on. The San Diego Foundation partnered with the Hunger Coalition and provided $265,000 to 28 school districts throughout San Diego. So as these districts moved from congregate meal feeding to grab and go, they needed a lot of support and they needed a lot of help. As you can imagine, they needed PPE, they needed a lot of canopy tents, speed racks, bags, you name it. So we were really fortunate that the San Diego Foundation stepped up, and we gratefully provided these very critical funds to school districts when they needed it most. And we also asked those districts that received the fund 3 important questions. What was your first week of service like? How many kids were showing up? What was your peak of demand or your busiest week? And what's your current demand? We asked this at the end of the summer. So this ranged from March till August that this program was running. Next slide. And what we found was that in that first week of COVID, 51,000 kids, or about 52,000 kids were able to access school meals. That was not a whole lot. Just, spoiler alert, but those schools just kept going. They kept communicating out that these meals were happening. They put up signs. Some school nutrition directors, they dressed like crocodiles or big pieces of broccoli, and they went and waved signs and balloons. And you can see it started to work. So at the peak of the summer, 161,000 kids were being served school meals in San Diego. And then it averaged out to about 121,000 kids per week. But you can see really innovative school buses that went and delivered, families that were holding up banners that said, "We heart your food, we love you, thank you for keeping me from going hungry." This was truly some heartwarming and really amazing work that our nutrition service directors did during COVID and continue to do. So kudos. And this is our third pillar. So advocacy. We've been working on federal, state, and local advocacy. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of this, but third-party integrity plan. This means that a third party can go and get multiple meals to pick up on behalf of multiple children. So for example, the YMCA can go and get 50 meals for the kids in their care and bring them back to their facility so those children have breakfast and lunch and a snack, sometimes dinner too. So we worked on this with the California Department of Education to make sure that the policy was going to be secure and reimbursable so the districts could turn over those meals, the children could eat, and we're really excited that we were able to help our districts with this integrity plan. Next slide. And also, let's just say San Diego is a powerhouse of advocacy. We have some strong voices out there, and we've been partnering with state agencies or state organizations like California Food Policy Advocates to get signatories onto co-sign letters to congressional reps, to the USDA, to the Education and Labor Committee, and then just for one example, this is a letter to the Secretary of Agriculture. There were 100 signatures nationwide, and 22 of those were from San Diego. So we are powerful, we are together, and we are just tremendously great at advocating for school meals here in San Diego. So kudos to us. And also in addition, the Hunger Coalition, we took an innovative strategy for reaching out to the USDA to extend flexibility for school meal waivers so that kids could have access to these meals during COVID. And we recognized that a lot of the asks to the Secretary of Agriculture, to Congress, were centered around, and rightfully so, kids are hungry, kids need these meals and they need them to learn and to play. But we saw that maybe this administration might be a little more amenable to hearing from businesses and job producers. So we circulated a letter on behalf of food distributors, producers, suppliers, and farmers here in San Diego to the Secretary of Agriculture. And 5 days later, through all of this combined advocacy, we got the critical meal waivers through December of this year. We're hoping that continues through the entire school year. Thank you. Our fourth pillar. This has been really exciting. So universal free meals are through our Meals Count tool, So universal free meals through Meals Count tool. So about 2 years ago, the Hunger Coalition, before my time, identified an underutilized program called CEP, or Community Eligibility Provision, which allows for high poverty schools to become eligible to serve free meals to all their kids. So every kid in the school can get free breakfast and lunch. However, the qualification for the program is really complicated and a little convoluted. So San Diego Hunger Coalition partnered with California Food Policy Advocates and Open San Diego. Open San Diego is an all-volunteer group, part of Code for America. And together we created a tech solution called the Meals Count tool. That was 2 years of development, testing, and launch. And it launched this year. Super exciting. 2020, what a year to launch. And the launch included webinars on a county, state, and national level, plus tech support to any school district who is interested into using this tool to start Meals Count, or to start community eligibility provision. Thank you. So the impact to San Diego in just year one of utilizing this Meals Count tool is that five school districts came on board or expanded CEP, and that's Escondido Elementary and High School, Vallecito, La Mesa, Spring Valley, and Fallbrook. 41 schools and 21,449 kids will now have access to free breakfast and lunch every day. And what's important to understand is this is going to continue past COVID. So this is for 4 years. It's just really great. So we have really great tools that we're working on, and this meals count was used all over California and in 30 states nationwide. So just tremendous achievement. Next slide. So what's next for Hunger Free Kids? Well, we've got to address a lot of current challenges. So there's school closures and school openings. There's hybrid models. There's remote learning. There's also quarantining. So as kids get sent home for quarantine for 14 days, or their whole class or their whole cohort gets sent, how are they going to get meals? There's also a lack of transportation. Some parents or children don't have access to go pick up these school meals. Their parents, some are returning to work, so maybe the times don't work. And I just want to say our school districts are just doing amazing work to make these meals as accessible as possible to as many parents and children, but sometimes the combinations just don't work, even despite best intentions. So so meal sites and times are hard to reach. And again, the ever-changing policies. So we're really working on understanding all those policies. And at the beginning of the school year, we had a little bit of a flub this year where the USDA was not going to extend some critical meal waivers, and the schools that did open up without those flexibilities, it was devastating at first. So they were seeing a 10% meal participation rate from last year. So huge challenges in that big section of the pie. But we have some promising solutions here at Hunger Coalition. So meal delivery. So we're working on an innovative program for meal delivery to our rural communities and communities of color. As you saw before, they're disproportionately impacted by COVID and economic inequality, and especially hunger, plus those quarantine children. So how are they going to get their meals? We're hoping it's meal delivery. We're also enabling youth serving organizations to pick up school meals, so that third-party pickup. We are advocating every step of the way to ensure that the USDA takes full advantage of the flexibilities that are going to be granted to them through the continuing resolution to continue for this entire school year. We need these flexibilities for the entire school year. And we're supporting schools as they reopen and training them in meals in the classroom. And this isn't included in here, but our secret weapon is that we are consulting or contracting with Gail Goucher. She's the former nutrition service director at Escondido Elementary Union School District. And she's just a powerhouse and a trusted voice among these nutrition service directors and a breath of fresh air. And we are so excited to have her on our team to help us understand these challenges and get the word out. So that is what's going on with Hunger Free Kids. We couldn't be more excited, and we're so grateful for your support to do this work. I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Schultz-Brochu, our Vice President of Programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I hope that you're all enjoying hearing about the amazing work that's going on across our two largest programs, our Hunger Free Kids programs and our CalFresh program. I'm really excited to be able to talk with you this morning about a new program that Hunger Coalition is currently in the process of developing and launching that we're calling our Hunger Free Navigator program. Next slide. Okay, so while food insecurity is extremely high, we also know that San Diego County has a vast network of hunger relief providers, from free meals for kids to CalFresh to our vast food pantry network, home delivered meals. There are more than 500 providers across San Diego County that are helping people access and connect to food assistance resources during this time. Next slide. However, many San Diegans really aren't sure where to start, and understanding the food assistance landscape and how to connect resources with resources can feel really daunting. So in many cases, people may not even be aware of the wide array of food assistance resources, including those resources that are right there in their own backyard. Next slide, please. So during this unprecedented time, the Hunger Coalition took an opportunity to pilot a really back to basics approach to outreach through community engagement. And we did this for a brand new program that was developed at the federal level called Pandemic or PEBT. This program was developed and implemented through our California Department of Social Services to provide $365 to every student who was receiving free or reduced price meals. And that money was developed and to offset the costs of meals that were lost when students weren't able to go to school and as school meal programs are still ramping up. So the Hunger Coalition did a landscape assessment, and we estimated that around 250,000 students across San Diego County were eligible for this program. And because of the way the program was developed, approximately half, or 120,000 of those students would need to apply in order to receive this benefit. When we took a look at the economic opportunity in making sure that this program was fully implemented in San Diego County, we estimated that if we were able to enroll all eligible students, that we'd have the opportunity to bring $91 million to San Diego County, not only strengthening our economic landscape, but getting immediate resources to families who needed them. So finally, we made a strategic decision to put significant resources into this outreach for all of these reasons, and as well as a recognition that the PEBT program was developed to be fairly easy for households to access. There were 5 questions, no interview was required, and no documents were needed for households to be able to access these benefits. Next slide, please. So the Hunger Coalition launched a 3-pronged approach to engaging parents to access these resources, including engaging school districts where parents attend, working with our network of community partners, and then engaging community residents themselves and helping us get the word out. Next slide, please. So the Hunger Coalition really immediately focused on developing print, digital, and social media content that school districts, community partners, and residents could use to easily promote the program within their communities. This content was developed in 16 different languages with an emphasis on Spanish and English, and hosted on our website, as well as emailed out to make it easy for people to access and then reshare and distribute. Next slide, please. So materials were also mailed out to more than 300 community organizations, including community clinics and hospitals, community resource centers, our network of 500 food pantries, as well as other partners, including our elected offices and municipalities, our libraries, Park and Rec. We wanted to do our very best to get this information as far out into the community as possible so that people were hearing these messages from a variety of trusted sources. Next slide, please. So in addition to the amazing support that the San Diego Foundation provided to support our school districts, we were also able to work with the San Diego Foundation to provide $32,000 in the form of 8 grants to community-based organizations to help us get the word out about this new program. So the Hunger Coalition really took an equity-based approach, focusing our efforts on communities of color, rural communities, and our immigrant communities that were disproportionately or have continued to be disproportionately impacted by COVID. The vast majority of the funds were also utilized as stipends to directly financially support resident leaders and helping us get the word out. So these resident leaders and the community organizations they worked with employed a variety of direct outreach and grassroots outreach methods, including one-on-one direct outreach, community, they did Zoom community forums and town halls, and also engaged their social media network. So we had over 30,000 contacts on social media, more than 29,000 texts and phone calls, and more than 18,000 individuals reached in person or through flyers that were distributed at various events and community distributions, all of which totaled to an estimate of over 60,000 unique households that were connected through these outreach campaigns. In addition to raising awareness, we were able to receive critical feedback from community members that really helped to inform ongoing hunger relief efforts and planning. Next slide, please. So what did we learn? We learned that making information local is really key. So by being able to say that we wanted to bring $90 million to San Diego County, we were able to engage a number of community-based organizations and partners. We also learned that content development goes a long way. So the easier we can make it to help people get access to this information and distribute it, the more likely we're able to extend our reach. We also learned that translating materials is relatively inexpensive and incredibly important. The vast majority of the communities that we work with don't regularly see food assistance resource materials or a lot of social service resources materials translated into their languages. And so we heard a lot of really positive feedback from community members on having that information readily accessible. And then finally, we learned that by building the right content, groups can take that information and expand it on their own in ways that make the most sense. So finally, we really saw community engagement as a critical investment. This source of information, and the source of information is just as important as the content. So working really closely with trusted messengers was key to ensuring that this information got out and in a way that people would take action after receiving information. We also learned that community engagement creates the opportunity to immediately respond to barriers. So as we were learning about the concerns and hurdles that people were experiencing in accessing this program, we were able to immediately make changes, including working with the California Department of Social Services to improve the online application, to improve messaging, and to develop new ways for people to be able to connect and receive the support that they needed. Finally, I think one of the biggest takeaways and things that is informing our Hunger Navigator program is that community members want to help one another. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Next slide, please. So as a result of the information that we learned, we are really taking and building upon this to develop what we're calling a Hunger-Free Navigator program. So we're creating two different tracks. The first track is to work with community residents that are interested in raising awareness, connecting their fellow residents to food assistance resources. So we want people to be comfortable having a 5-minute conversation with their neighbor around food insecurity, why people shouldn't be concerned about accessing resources, and to be able to help kind of break down some of those myths and connect them to resources that make sense. Secondly, we're creating a Hunger-Free Navigator 201 program, and that program we're really focusing on case managers, patient navigators, resource specialists that may have some level of understanding of the food assistance landscape, but are interested in more strategically connecting individuals to the food assistance resources that make the most sense for their households. Next slide, please. Great, so returning back to our San Diegan that's seeking resources, knowing where to start can be hard. Next slide. People may not know where to go to access resources, or they may not even be aware of the resources that are in their backyard. But we've also learned that there are a number of barriers that are preventing individuals from accessing resources even after they learn about them. So some of the most common barriers that we learned about from the more than 60,000 households that we connected with through PEBT include primary language spoken by the household, uncertainty about food assistance resource programs and stigma associated with accessing resources, misinformation about programs. We know that our programs are rapidly changing, and that can be really confusing for people who are trying to access them. And then fear, particularly in our immigrant communities during this uncertain political climate. Next slide, please. So by equipping community members with information about available resources, we're really looking to create a network of hunger-free navigators that can reduce barriers to access by helping us get the word out, debunk myths, and help people feel more comfortable in learning about and connecting with these food resources. Next slide, please. So if we have navigators, in addition to having our Hunger-Free Navigator community residents, we're also looking to see Hunger-Free navigators at each of the organizations that are providing food assistance, so that when people walk through the door, we can increase the chances that we're able to meet all of their household food assistance needs by connecting them to all of the available resources that make sense for them. Next slide, please. So trained navigators are going to be able to help identify the right resources for that family's unique needs and connect them to the resources that are immediately in their backyards. Next slide. All right, so where are we at in this process? We are currently working backwards. So we're starting with our Hunger Free Navigator 201 training to ensure that all of our hunger relief partners have all of the resources, information, tools that they need to best connect individuals to all food assistance resources. As we build this more interconnected safety net, we'll then move on to working with community residents to develop our Hunger Free Navigator 101 that's going to be facilitating our neighbors, helping neighbors. So we're really excited to share this new program for the San Diego Hunger Coalition and look forward to continued conversations as we continue to build and launch these efforts. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Anahid Braki, our CEO, to close us out.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you so much, team. Thank you to all of our attendees today. So as you can see, we work on a lot of things behind the scenes. We are constantly monitoring the landscape, looking for barriers, looking for opportunities to bring hundreds of millions of additional dollars to San Diego County. I really want to thank our donors and, I think we're a little bit unique when it comes to hunger relief in that we do take this kind of technical approach. And I want to say kudos to our donors for funding systems change work like this. We really think that this is the path forward. Everything that we do is in partnership. We work so closely with other organizations and community members to guide our work. And as you can see, our team is full of problem solvers, social innovators, and we're all team players. The next stages of Hunger Free San Diego and our work across these different areas will be very focused on the interconnection between each of these types of programs. So the Hunger Free Navigator program will really increase the connections between. And also, we're delighted to share that we have the honor of re-granting an additional $200,000 from the San Diego Foundation's COVID response, the COVID Community Response Fund. And this will be used to further enhance the connections between charitable food assistance and federal nutrition programs. We're also going to be partnering with No Kid Hungry to help disseminate some of their funding, about $100,000 for school districts and child nutrition programs. So we're really looking with the Hunger Free San Diego Advisory Board at how to best utilize grant dollars in a way that makes all of our work, that advances all of our work. So I think with that, I'm going to close. We're so grateful for you all joining us. We're about to, let's see, I think maybe I'm supposed to turn it over to Georgia.
Thank
But
you. So that concludes our presentation. For those who are able to stick around, we'd love to have you. Our panelists are going to be here to answer any questions you have. I know people have been putting things in the chat, so hopefully there's some questions we can answer. But just to echo what Anahid said, we just thank you all so much and really hope you saw the impact that you've made and will continue to make, and that you learned something new about the Hunger Coalition's work, especially in these difficult times. We really can't do it without you, so thank you. And now, panelists, if you would please turn your cameras on, and I would also like to introduce Joe Shumay, our Director of Communications, who will be facilitating the Q&A session.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions about any of the incredible information that our team has shared with you today, go ahead and enter that into the chat, and we'll answer as many questions as we can before 11:30. And if we don't get to it, we can always circle back around and connect with you later to answer your questions. So the first question we have is regarding the hunger-free navigator positions. What's your time frame to launch, and what will be these? And will these positions be paid positions?
Those are great questions. So we are in the development and soft launch phase with the Hunger Free Navigator 2.0 for our community-based organizations. So we are finalizing content and then sharing that content with trusted partners to receive feedback to further iterate and develop materials that can then be shared out. For our community resident Hunger Free Navigator 101 program, we are looking to develop alongside community residents materials by the end of this year. So we are in the process of exploring collaborative opportunities with a number of grassroots organizations across San Diego County that will help us engage with community residents, and then we'll work with those residents and we'll likely be providing some form of stipend support for those efforts. But as we continue to develop the opportunities, we'll be providing more input and feedback.
Excellent. Thank you, Amanda. We have a question here. What's the best way to support your work?
I'll take that question. So every dollar helps, and you all know that. But there are additional ways that you can also help with creating a hunger-free San Diego. One is to learn about hunger in our region and share that information with others. A lot of people are really surprised to learn that hunger is an issue in San Diego County, because we are such a we're a thriving region. But really, I think, it's been a hidden crisis for a long time, and now it's not so hidden. And people are really seeing that we have so many fabulous organizations, but the connections between and the ability for an individual to navigate those systems, need a little bit more strengthening. So learn about hunger, share resources about food assistance. So we're creating one-pagers that have just a little bit about a lot of different resources, the kinds of things that you can throw into a food bag that you're giving out, or post on your, disseminate to the PTA or something like that. So help us share these hunger relief resources. Sign up to become a hunger-free activist. So occasionally we will send out calls to action, and that's when we really need people to let our legislators know that this is an issue that's important to San Diego, that it's going to affect tens of thousands of people. Like, we need you to call and sign on now. So join our Hunger-Free Activist list. And donations to the Hunger Coalition or donations to our partner organizations to support their collaborative work and their systems change work will help us all make sure everyone has enough to eat.
Thank you, Anahid. Next question. I know someone who could use CalFresh. How can we connect them?
Sure, yeah, great question. So I think the three best ways to connect San Diegans to CalFresh, one, you can call 211 and they can assist over the phone. Someone can also go online and submit an application within 15 minutes on getcalfresh.org. But we also encourage community members to use our food assistance map at sdhunger.org/calfresh-assistance. And what we've done is mapped out where all of our partner organizations and their various sites are, so that community members can find a trusted organization in their backyard. And what's great about that is these organizations are not only providing CalFresh, so they can also overlap with that assistance with some of those other services to really get to the root of hunger. So we encourage you to refer people to those community-based organizations to get that assistance.
That's great. Thank you, Jake. Next question. How can I best support communities of color and Indigenous communities?
Yeah, I'd be happy to field that question. So I think, the most important thing and the first approach that we're taking at Hunger Coalition is listening. So by hearing directly from communities about what their current needs are, how COVID and related food insecurity is impacting the communities and the barriers that they're facing to accessing resources is really helping us guide and provide support to the broader hunger relief system as we're increasing pathways and also potentially developing new resources to be able to support communities of color. So we're working with a number of community-based organizations that have an ear to the ground and are embedded directly in communities that are advising and guiding us on a regular basis to ensure that our programs are supporting and providing the most direct assistance possible in ways that make sense.
Great. Let's see here. Where is an immediate opportunity for investment?
That is a great question. I would say that, we're working on a lot of different things, and we can target a donation however you wish. If you would really like to support a school district in a particular area, we can help you connect with that. You want to support a particular neighborhood, we can help you connect with the organizations reaching out to that neighborhood. If you want to support CalFresh, the CalFresh application assistance training, just let us know. We'll use the funds for that. So, what was the question? Did I answer that?
Where's an immediate opportunity for investment?
Mm-hmm. And I would say too that, we've been really very, very fortunate to have received many generous gifts when COVID hit. They helped us stabilize our operations. That enabled us to take our eyes off of the budget for a minute and really put all of our resources onto how to best pivot our programs to provide the help that people needed and that our partners needed. Right now, we are working to build a data warehouse and connect it to mapping. We're creating this food assistance navigator training, thanks to a very generous anonymous donor. But I would say we're very worried about 2021. This is as you heard from Amanda Schultz Brochu, we're going to have elevated food insecurity through the end of 2021 at least. So we hope that you'll stick with us. We hope that you'll attend all of our insider briefings and continue to learn. And Georgia and I are always available to talk with you if you have questions about how to direct your support or effort or energy to help us with our work.
Great. And then it looks like we have one last question. Here's one that just came in. It may have been stated, was the CalFresh interview waiver extended beyond August 31st?
No, unfortunately, it was expected to expire July 31st, and through our advocacy efforts, we were able to extend it 1 month, which really allowed us to work closely with the county on what our communication plan would be so that we could make sure that new applicants and current recipients knew what was going to be coming down the pipeline. So as of right now, our county is trying to make it as easy as possible for people to complete those interviews, but they are now back in effect.
Yeah, the county is going to have a lot on its plate. And I'm talking about the Eligibility Operations Department that oversees CalFresh and other federal means tested programs. So with the interview waiver, meaning that they have to interview people again, and some of these other waivers that made the enrolling people quicker and a little easier for the county, all of that is expiring. At the same time that, shortly after unemployment benefits have expired. So we know that the restaurants have not opened up. We know that the jobs haven't come back. So we're going to still be seeing this elevated number of applications. And so, you know, since we look at the whole system of the community-based application assistance, we're talking to the county about how we can help support. Another thing coming down the pike is that the pandemic EBT is potentially going to be extended if the Senate votes for it. And so we're hoping to see another round of the pandemic EBT, which goes directly to kids who are eligible for free and reduced price meals. That will be administered through the county. And so we anticipate a lot of partnerships and planning, collaborative planning to address that in the fall and over the next 12 months.
And if I can add just one more item to that. So although the interviews are back in effect, that hasn't affected our continued advocacy in the hopes of getting these interviews waived. So there's a few different bills in the process, and our Hunger Advocacy Network actually has several meetings this week to close out Hunger Awareness Month, to be able to advocate and really bring a personal story to share why it's so important that these flexibilities are in place. So we are still going to continue advocating, and we'll make sure that information continues to get updated on our website.
So I just want to remind you, if you haven't used the chat before, you can just take your cursor down to the bottom of the screen and you should see a little chat bubble. You can pull that thing up and just type a message in there or just say hi.
So one of our attendees is wondering where they can go to make a donation.
Joe, do you want to take that? Our webmaster?
It's super easy. You go to sehunger.org/donate, and you can make a donation to the Hunger Coalition. You can also contact us directly if you have a question about, you know, if you're interested in donating, we need more information. One of the services that we do provide is we help you figure out what best fits your needs. Then I see one last question here right now. The question is, how can I volunteer?
I will take that. Call us. I would say that the type of volunteers, well, let's see. One, you can help us paper the entire county with the food assistance resource flyer. It's really surprising how little people know about how to access food assistance and what else there is that they may be eligible for beyond going to a food bank. I think even sometimes going to the pantry distributions is intimidating to people. And so help us get the word out. When it comes to volunteering directly with our organization, we benefit most from project-based volunteers who can work on a particular project or give us, you know, a bit of time, a bit of continued time over a period because of the nature of our work. But if you are looking for some other type of volunteer opportunity that is just maybe like a one day, I would send you over to the Hands On San Diego website. Our CalFresh program manager, Jake Hess, is actually the board chair of that organization. It's a fantastic organization, very easy website to utilize. And so if you're looking to support one of our partners on the ground who need help with packing food bags or delivering, or, you know, there's a lot of safe ways to volunteer with the food distribution and the efforts on the ground. So I would check out Hands On San Diego, or please contact us if you've got a little more time and want to dig into a project.
It looks like that's all the questions we have right now. If any of our attendees have any questions or something comes up later, you can always contact Georgia or Anahid, and they'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, I think with that, we will end 15 minutes early. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for your kind notes in the chat. It's really it really means a lot to us that you'd spend some time with us like this today. So thank you again for supporting our work. And we will see you on the next Hunger Free Insider Briefing.